Welcome to the MVFC First and Goal podcast. I'm Kelly Burke, and today we are diving into the realities of being a head coach's wife in football. And few are better qualified to talk about that topic than Kimberly Eck of South Dakota State football. She is wife to Jason, the offensive line coach and the run game coordinator for South Dakota State. She is a mom to 4 boys, and she also has a blog, Beauty, Babes, and Ball. So Kimberly, I'm so excited we can finally connect, and welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Kelly.
You are in the middle, or really actually you just wrapped up fall training camp. So how did you and the boys navigate that?
You know, I'd say most mornings he leaves at about 7 a.m. and gets back at about 10:30 or 11. So I think as a coach's wife, you just really have to stay busy. I think staying busy is key. And really with 4 boys, that's not really hard to do. But, we basically just kind of get ready for back to school, and we were ending some summer sports and getting ready for some fall sports. We just keep busy and kind of keep, we try and make practice when we can and keep things rolling.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, you did not grow up in a coach's family. So
I did not.
How much of an eye-opener was marrying a football coach for you?
Well, from the time I was born till about 23 years old, I lived within like a 15-minute radius of Madison, Wisconsin. Okay. And then I married Jason. And so basically, with all like being married to football and all the moves, I'd say it's a big eye opener.
How so?
I just think the moving around in general, it was pretty hard for me even first to go through the dynamics of getting let go. I took it really personally at first. I didn't understand it was part of the business, but I really had to just get a thicker skin and realize not take things personally. And, everything happens for a reason. I think we've gone through a lot of ups and downs in his career, but we wouldn't be at South Dakota State, which, we love, without those ups and downs. So
you alluded to it a little bit, but what do you feel like are the biggest misconceptions about being a coach's wife?
That's a good question. There's 2 things that really kind of stick out in my head when I think about it. The first thing is, and I know a lot of coaches' wives will agree with this, people will ask a question, well, what does he do in the off season? Like, what does your husband do in the off season? And it kind of grates on all of our nerves when we're asked that question, because football really is, it never ends. It really never ends, because there's, after the season, there's recruiting, and then there's spring ball and spring training and camps, and then there's satellite camps. And really, there's just a small part of July that we actually can get away for like a vacation. So I think that's a huge misconception, that they think that their job is only in the season. Another misconception that I feel like, and I've even felt like this from people like family close to me, that it's just a game when really it's our livelihood. And I don't think people understand like how much every game means. And, if we're losing and having a bad season, we're worried about, what's going to happen with our jobs. And even the fans in the stands, I'd say, they don't understand. They think it's a game, but they don't realize that, these coaches have children who have to change schools, have to meet new friends, have to move over and over. I mean, that's, they don't understand it's our livelihood, and it's so important to us.
What would you say was the point that you really embraced being not only a coach's wife, but just the coach's life, because it is so different than the average person?
It really is. And I'll really be quite honest. When I met Jason, I really wasn't that into football. I watched a lot of college basketball with my family. But as time, as a newly married coach's wife, I was luckily surrounded by amazing coaches' wives that really, I kind of looked up to, and I kind of embraced it early on just by watching them. I can even think of one situation. We were at the University of Idaho, and the head coach's wife was Julie Holt, and her husband's Nick Holt. They're actually at Purdue now, but she would always look back at us, all the coaches' wives, to make sure we were standing up on 3rd down. And that kind of stuck with me. I just thought that was really cool how into it she was, and she wanted to make sure we were all in and all supporting the team. And I'll be quite honest. Now I kind of get annoyed when people don't stand up on third down. I think having that supportive coaches' wives and just like I looked up to her. I feel like that really helped me embrace being a coach's wife.
It's funny that you say that, because when I talked to Jason the other day, that was one thing he mentioned, is just how far you've come. And he mentioned the third down thing, like defensively, that you get really upset at people in the stands if they don't stand up. And then he talked about too how hard you take losses now, and that obviously the game against James Madison this past year in the semis, and that you were crying afterwards. And he's like, it means so much to me that she cares this much.
I love that. It really does. And we support each other back and forth that way, because I'd say he handles regular season games pretty hard.
Yeah.
The Northern Iowa game was really tough for us this past year. But the James Madison, really, I'd say there's only been 2 games in the history of his coaching football that I literally sobbed after a game, and JMU was definitely one. I just feel like we have such a football family here, where I've gotten so close with parents and those kids, and seeing my husband's seniors tears in their eyes because it's their last game. There's something just that gets to me. And I think just more on just not just that we lost the game, but seeing those families upset, and I don't know, it's over. It's like I didn't want it to be over kind of feeling. I wanted to keep going. And I knew we were good enough. We were good enough, but just didn't work out that way.
How has Coach Stegelmeyer, and his family, how have they set the tone for the whole group of coaches' wives and just coaches' families? Because he's such a man of faith, and he really, in my opinion, is one of the true gentlemen of the Missouri Valley Football Conference. He's just such a great person from a media standpoint to work with when we do your games occasionally. They're just the most unbelievable family. And I feel we're so blessed to have had the ups and downs to be able to get the opportunity to work here. I really believe that they believe in like a football family environment. And we've never been in a program where they actually have a son's trip. And every year my sons are allowed to travel with the team and go on a trip to an away game. And I don't know, there's something to be said for that. And really, Lori, his wife, just takes those boys under her wing and takes care of them. And I just love the program here and what he represents, because he really grinds and works hard. He loves football, but he remembers, that we all have a family. Even, during the season, he has our children come up in their Halloween costumes just so they can see the coaches, and all the coaches hand out a treat. Oh.
And it's a short period of time, but yeah, they can break for just 10 minutes to see their children in costumes. He really sees the big picture. I can't imagine a better head coach than him. I just adore him.
As I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, you have a must-read blog, in my opinion, called Beauty, Babes, and Ball. And what inspired you to start that?
I started it almost 3 years ago, and I honestly didn't even know if anyone would read it. And I had talked about it for a long time, and finally I was actually surrounded in a room full of moving boxes, and I'm like, I'm just going to start it. And I just sat down and typed away. I think the big thing is the beauty side is because I have a fashion marketing degree and a cosmetology degree, and the babes are my 4 children, and just kind of life as a mom, and it's a little bit chaotic at times. But the ball part of it has been, the football aspect of it has been my most popular. Those are my, most read posts. And I think this gives coaches' wives something to relate to. And we all need that. I mean, we're all going through sometimes moves where we're surrounded by boxes and our husbands are gone. And nothing touches me more than to hear from someone I don't even know, a coach's wife, states away, saying, I totally related to this post. Thank you. I needed this right now. And, that just makes me feel good. And I don't know, it just keeps me going with it. And that's why I keep writing.
What kind of feedback do you get?
I get a lot of people contacting me, and one thing that I've loved is just watching it grow, because I can actually track how many people view each of my posts, and it's really taken off. It started out small, and it grows, I feel like every time I put out a new blog, it gets bigger, a blog post, it gets bigger and bigger. And it's just fun to see that. But the best part is just hearing someone like, wow, I totally related to that. That makes me feel great, because coaches' wives need each other. We need that support system. And I feel like if I'm helping like just even a handful of people, that makes me feel amazing.
Yeah. You're also on the board of directors for the American Football Coaches Wives Association. And, how did that come about, and what exactly does that entail?
I actually have been a member for years now, and Jeannie Etheridge, which was the former president last year, and ironically, her husband is at Illinois State, and he's also an offensive line coach, got a hold of me and suggested that I just apply for the board of directors. And so I filled out an application, I met with the board, and then they voted for me this past year in Charlotte at the coaches convention. And I kind of run with another coach's wife, Teresa Lemke. I just run the whole social media aspect of it. And so I'm kind of on social media a lot with my blog, and just kind of out there. Like, I made treats tonight for the players. I kind of take pictures and post. I think they just thought I'd be a good fit with Teresa. And her and I really get together a lot. And we actually have like a private members page that we created. And that's only for, football coaches' wives that are paying members. But we have like what's called, instead of a podcast, it's a wine cast.
Nice.
It's gotten so big and so popular because we can get together during training camp and say, what are you guys doing right now? We're struggling. How are you staying busy? And so it gives coaches' wives a private area to come together and be, a little bit, I don't want to say we complain, but just kind of, we're there for each other when, there's difficult times like recruiting or whatever it be. And who doesn't want a glass of wine once in a while?
I'm not even a coach's wife, but I love wine. So I'd be right there with you. You spoke about treats. I think how we initially connected is, I came across, I followed your husband on Twitter, and then through that came across you and your blog, but you were posting a picture about your scotcheroos, and I reached out to you and said, I need the recipe for that. I think my husband would really like those. So what's your specialty?
You know what? I always go with, I have a chocolate chip cookie recipe that's very popular, and I put like the team colors blue, yellow, and white on like M&Ms on top of it. And I'd say that's the most popular with the coaches. I think the scotcheroos were popular. I honestly told my husband, I think they're getting sick of them. Like, I feel bad, but I'm so superstitious that I'm like, I'm not changing the recipe. You win, you keep the recipe the same. So it was like a good problem to have.
Yeah.
But let's just say I didn't have the greatest manicure all season long because I was constantly washing my hands and baking like all the time.
I'm sure. And probably, especially the blue and the yellow, probably got dyed onto your skin at times.
Yeah, right. Those are good problems though, right? If you're winning.
Totally. I understand too, you have the offensive linemen over once a year to your house for dinner, which is no easy undertaking because I believe there's 19 of them. So is it like a Thanksgiving dinner kind of thing that you're preparing for, that, especially those type of appetites?
I actually would say it's probably pretty close because it's a lot of food, and a lot of preparation. Like I literally start even day before just making things in the tins and then writing what to bake it at so I can throw it in the oven, at the right time. I have dips set out when they get there. They all have really big appetites. And, you got to give the big guys up front a little love sometimes. So,
especially because they don't always get I feel like they get sort of shafted sometimes by the media. It's always the position players that are getting all the attention.
Yeah, that's part of the reason, too, why I make those treats for them. I feel like, obviously the quarterback's always going to get a lot of attention. But those big guys need a little love too. So what better way with food?
Totally. And they're the ones that keep the quarterback upright, keep tearing up.
Right.
So.
Yeah.
My conversation with Kimberly Eck continues in just a second, but if you're enjoying this edition of the MVFC First and Goal podcast, check out all the Lineup Media Group offerings, sports and non-sports podcasts. Now back to the show. What stands out about South Dakota State's run to the semis last year?
It was kind of just like, I felt like a magical season. I don't know if that seems like, it was just amazing to watch them every week. And I don't know, to me, it was just we have such great players here. I really feel like, all the coaches really recruit well, and everyone seems to fit so well here that I know that Coach Stig and all the other coaches take a lot of time to make sure it's a good fit for South Dakota State. And our players, I don't know, there's just such a football family. And I can think of standing by Goddard's mom at JMU, and she had her yellow bunny ears on, and we're cheering as they're going out. I don't know. There's something about here I've never experienced anywhere else. So that just overall, the run to the semis, I just felt was just such a great overall experience. I didn't want it to end. So I have to say that last game was just heartbreaking to me. And took me a long time to really get over it.
Who would you say takes losses harder, you or Jason?
I definitely think regular season games, he takes them harder. And then the semifinal game, I was sobbing. I was literally sobbing.
Yeah.
But it's more on the aspect of just, like I said, not only the loss is tough, but seeing families sad that they're never going to see their son play again. That aspect is really tough for me to see, because I can relate. I'm going to have a son. I have a son that plays football. That could be me someday. And I just cannot, I feel for them.
Yeah. You talked about, you have a fashion marketing degree. You also have a cosmetology degree. So how do you weave that in though? Because you are a mom to 4 boys. So it's not like you have 4 girls, that it'd be really easy to just throw that stuff in there. How do you work it in?
It's funny because with I've never really been able to use my fashion marketing degree, because usually we live in small college towns. So partially that's why I started my blog. But I definitely, with my boys, my husband laughs at me about starting July. I start planning, okay, I'm going to buy, matching T-shirts for us to wear at the game. And, I have to definitely persuade my older sons and make sure it's acceptable to them because they're teenagers. But I try and organize that. And we just had our family photo taken for the media guide, and I had it all planned out so colors were coordinated. And we were all I wanted our picture taken at the stadium this year, so we were all in gear, but I wanted to all, mesh well. So I guess that's how I use my fashion marketing degree a little bit. And of course, we had to have Jack in our picture.
Totally.
But I also use my cosmetology degree has really worked out good because I cut all their hair, which is kind of nice. So
yeah.
So my job's never done. I wear a lot of hats in this house.
Yeah. Do you have other wives ever asking you to do their hair or help with their makeup or anything?
I have had coaches' wives that I've done their hair. I have a really good friend of mine when we were at Ball State University. I actually would do her hair, color it, and cut it regularly. So I never like to advertise it, but if someone wanted me to help, I would. It's just convenient to be able to do my son's hair anytime and my husband's hair. Sometimes I'd like a little break.
I know you wear so many different hats.
Yeah, right.
Well, you and Jason celebrated 16 years of marriage, I believe, in June.
Yeah.
How did you both initially meet?
We met both in school when we were in Madison, Wisconsin. And it's funny because we have a great story. I didn't even know he was a graduate assistant at Wisconsin at the time. I wasn't really that big of a football fan. So I told him he was actually chewing on gum, and I said to him, "You chew gum like a coach." He just kind of had that demeanor about him, and I always tell him it's kind of like a joke. It's like in Jerry Maguire when they say you had me at hello. I told him, "You chew gum like a coach." And it was pretty much from then on we were together. So we had our first date a few weeks after, and we're together ever since.
That's awesome. You had a recent blog. I think it was something like 16 things about, within
16 years.
yeah,
Yep.
16 years of marriage, 16 things about being married. And I think one of the first ones was about how you think of marriage traditionally as a 50-50 partnership, but but in reality, it's like on any given week, it might be 70-30. It might be, like vice versa, which I thought was so spot on. Because I've been married about a quarter of what you guys have. We're going on 4 years here. And I exactly thought of it like 50-50. And then same thing. You just realize, no, it's a lot different than people make it out to be.
Exactly. And I think too, if you go into this or any marriage thinking 50-50, it's not going to work out. You have to know there's going to be times of need for any, spouse is going to need you more. But I'd say definitely in the football season, I think I said it was something like 90-10. And I really, I think there's a lot of truth to that. But I definitely think then when the season ends and recruiting ends, if there's a time, that I need him, he steps up. So
yeah, marriage is a lot of ebbs and flows, and it's one partner picking the other one up, if they're going through stuff, and vice versa. And you've moved 9 times, and I believe you've been through 6 head coaching changes. And so how hard is that aspect, of the relationship and just the life you live?
The moving is definitely, I've kind of joked around that I should be probably like working for a moving company because I've packed so many times our homes up. That's a hard part in coaching because a lot of times our husbands leave and start their new job, and we're the ones responsible for having the moving company come, packing up. Sometimes, whether the school pays for the move or not, or partially, you have to come up with, a lot of times I've chose to pack myself because that cuts down a lot on the cost. So then we can have a moving company take it. I just try, and the biggest thing for me is I try and remain extremely positive for my children. I feel like I chose to be married to a coach. They didn't, they were born into this life. And I think everything is in perspective. So if they see their mom crumbling, they're going to crumble. And so I kind of treat it always like a new football adventure. Thankfully, we've just been so blessed, even though we've had our ups and downs to be at a place like South Dakota State. I just think our president, Barry Dunn, and our athletic director, Justin Sell, has done an amazing job just creating, a kind of an environment here that is just amazing. And, Coach Stig is such a great head coach. So I really try and look at it. Everything happens for a reason, because if I kind of, if I get upset about, before we got here, we left Montana State and there was our head coach was fired. And there was a lot of, we could sit there and be upset, but we have to understand that this is part of the business and kind of look at it like, what's next, and look forward to, one of the things that I always do is buy them new gear wherever we're going right away, because that's exciting. Everyone wants a new football jersey, and just kind of treat it like a new adventure.
How did you reach the point that you learned not to take all that stuff personally?
I definitely remember the first time we went through this, because we were at the University of Idaho, and I cried a lot. I just didn't understand. And I'm sure Jason was concerned, like, oh my goodness, like, will she be able to handle this? But the more we went through it, I understood. And it's just part of the deal. I mean, a lot of times when a head coach is let go, they call it like cleaning house, and they get rid of everyone else. And so I don't know where I just finally, I definitely think early on going through it enough, I just knew that it's just part of the deal. And I think Jason talked to me a lot because his dad coached college basketball. So he went through it a lot growing up. He remembers moving, the moving sign in the yard and not liking it and being upset. And I really believe, that children will pick up on you, the way you react. And so we've always just kind of thought, no matter what, it's okay if I'm upset, just talk to each other so that our children can just, have a happy experience in this kind of crazy lifestyle.
Your off season is super busy as well because of recruiting. What do you think the average fan would be surprised to know about that aspect of football?
I just think a lot of people do not understand that football truly never ends. We actually looked at how many weekends he worked last year, and I believe it was like 40 out of 52 weekends.
Wow.
So we're talking about like camps, satellite camps. We're talking about, spring ball training. And my husband likes to work a lot and grind away, and just there's always film to watch or something to do. So I don't think people really understand that side of it at all.
Makes sense. Speaking of the off season, you guys have sort of started a tradition, you and Jason, of going to the Kentucky Derby. I think you've been 6 times now. And so what is it, aside from the obvious that we hear about that sporting event, that has resonated with you both and turned into this annual tradition?
We actually, he actually went quite a few years before he met me. So he's gone 13 times, which is amazing. Oh, wow. And honestly, like, I would add it to your bucket list, Kelly. It's an amazing event. I just, for probably the fashion side, I love to dress up. I actually have a place in Louisville that makes my hats to coordinate with my dress. So I just love that part of it. And we both love the horses. I pick the name that I like, and we love mint juleps. And it's just kind of an overall amazing atmosphere. Everyone's happy, and it's just a great event to go to. We always go, usually the coaches couple. Like this year we went with our cornerbacks coach, Dan Jackson, and his wife, Missy. And that's always fun because, it's there. We're all kind of in this together, and it's sports and another, just something to do together. And we've met other coaches' family or coaches' couples too at there before.
Do you help coordinate Jason's outfits so that they go with yours?
I do. I usually plan my entire outfit, and then we, match his pocket square to like my dress and his tie and maybe his breast socks. So at least I'm using my degree somewhat.
Totally. That's super fun. So as we tape this, you actually have a completely quiet house, which I'm sure rarely ever happens. So
never happens.
What's your Zen state like right now, and how are you enjoying this? Because Jason has the boys at church.
I feel like I'm on vacation. No, our house is never quiet with 4 boys, and usually I chuckle that usually I'm saying, what happened? Because I hear something crash, or someone's crying, or someone's, there's wrestling going on. So I'm thankful my husband, because he's going in later, took the boys, away so I could have this interview with you. But I honestly feel like I'm on vacation right now.
Well, I'm glad we could make you feel like that. Now I just need to get you a glass of wine or something.
Right? I know.
Even though it's still 10 something there, but
yeah. A mimosa.
Yeah, it's 5:00 somewhere, right?
I love it.
Last question for you. What are your predictions for South Dakota State's football team this year? Because you really have the insights, and I feel like, people in general are sort of expecting this drop off because you lose playmakers like Dallas and Jake, but you guys have a lot of guys back.
Yeah, we do. And you know what? I'm kind of happy people think that, because I think they'll be, surprised, because first off, our quarterback Terran's amazing. And our offensive line will be great. I think when something, it's 2 players that were great players go away, then, other people step up. And we have really we have a great running back. Mikey Daniel's great. And I'm excited. I think we're going to surprise a lot of people.
Very cool. Is there anything else you want to share or want people out there to know just about this unique lifestyle you live? And it's also a very special lifestyle.
Yeah, I think, being a coach's wife is it's definitely, coach's wives are some of the strongest people I know, but I really think that they play a big role in this football life, because we're there to support. We're the the cheerleaders in the stands, and we're there through the thick and the thin, the ups and the downs. And I don't think we get enough credit either sometimes, but I really believe that, coaches' families are one of a kind.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to do this with me today. And
You're welcome. Thank you for having me, Kelly.
absolutely. I look forward. I'm trying to think what week we have South Dakota State. I want to say it's week 6 maybe or 7. I'll have to text you and let you know because
Yeah,
hopefully
I'd love to.
it's a road game. But if I feel like it might be maybe at Northern Iowa that we have you guys, so I'll let you know. But I look forward to meeting you in person.
Yeah, you too. I definitely do.
If you like what you heard from Kimberly Eck in our MVFC First and Goal podcast, please do us a favor and share, subscribe, and leave a review. LineUpMedia.fm also is home to many other sports podcasts, shows like Bleacher Bums, 11th Inning Stretch, and Performance Nation. You can also find us on iTunes and Stitcher.